Greetings, my name's Guy Dauncey. This is the show called Change the World, where I like to invite guests on who share my passion for a beautiful future, for doing things, for making change happen, for being positive, and we don't waste time moaning and groaning. So my guests today are Jack Meredith and Lori Garcia-Meredith, and my guests are both architectural engineers. You both got a big background in professional, being engineering, being important, green building, stuff like that, BC Building Corporation, Dockside Green Building Council, and then you made a flip into community organizing and energizing, right? Which is what we're here to talk about. What inspired the change? Lori, what made you want to change?
Well, a big change for me was when I was working professionally. It's the kind of profession where you're either working 120% or you're not working at all. And I developed a chronic pain condition and ended up quitting my job and saying I got to roll back that a little bit and do something else. And so we ended up, I'm moved into the arts, a lot more artistic involvement, a lot more community involvement. And that was really my big shift in my life. No longer calling yourself an engineer and putting those letters behind your name.
Yeah. And Jack, what was it for you that made the change?
I got old.
It happens.
No, it happens. Had a great career, worked on some fabulous projects. You mentioned Dockside Green, Loretta Bay, helping the Buildings Council get established and is on its feet. But in 2008, there was a bit of a cutback in development projects. A lot of projects were put on hold, and that was an opportunity for us to travel across Canada and see a lot of our nation, and caused us to think, to say, well, what do we want to do with the rest of our lives?
You've got another 40 years ahead of you, right?
Well, exactly. And one of the things that we felt strongly about was environmental issues and some of the impending kind of crises that you talk about on your show, and other guests have spoken about that. And what can we do about that? And what we wanted to do is demonstrate things that you could do. So we've done a number of things in our own properties that we demonstrate to people. But we also saw that a lot of people, in looking at the impending kind of dilemmas that are coming, crises that are coming, are becoming very insular and retreating into their houses. A lot of people will drive home and
shut the door,
lock the doors, and
watch Netflix,
and hide away. And what we wanted to do is connect with our neighbors. We wanted to encourage people to come together in groups, because Lori and I both strongly believe that we're stronger when we're socially connected.
So
groups can do far more than individuals.
You live in Vic West, right?
That's right.
On a describe the street. Fairly normal, but
how would you describe it?
It's a pretty normal street. When we first purchased there, it was just sort of an average price neighborhood, right across the street from a low income cooperative housing arrangement, close to an elementary school, single family residential, kind of your standard street.
Yeah, okay. So then you organized this idea of a transition street, right?
Well, we were introduced to the transition street program from Transition Victoria.
Right.
And it was something that they wanted to bring to Canada from the UK.
Right.
And it immediately struck a chord with me, and I went up to talk to one of our neighbors who's a very social, connecting kind of person, Patty Parkhouse. And before I could tell her about this exciting thing that I had discovered, she told me about this exciting thing that she discovered called Transition Street.
Oh, my goodness.
We'd both heard about it from different areas.
So let me cut in. Transition from what to what?
Well, it's transitioning to a new way of thinking. So Transition Streets had a program, a formal program that they introduced, workbooks that you could work through. And we would talk about, there was a 6-week program, and we talked about energy, water, help me here, Lori.
Food, waste, transportation.
And then just a general talking about various things that are happening. So it's all of it's kind of focused on the environmental kinds of issues, But when we sat down to talk about those things, it spread much wider to what people want. And the common element was that people wanted connection.
Yeah.
People wanted neighbors where they could borrow a cup of sugar. And there was, I think, 20 people on our street that we approached with a flyer, and all 20 said, yeah, we want to get involved. We want a piece of this. And then I think there was probably 14 or 15 of those 20 houses that came to the first meeting and then came through the various meetings.
So let's pull up the photo of the first meeting you gave us. It's a slide that's just like it's a kitchen meeting, I think. You're all sitting around looks like a kitchen table, or
Right.
you know.
Yeah, that's it's our dining room.
Yeah, there we go.
Right there.
And food and beer is always involved.
Totally,
Yeah.
yes.
You can always get people to join together around a table.
So how many of these neighbors knew each other before they came to your home for this?
Well, I think they mostly knew of each other more than anything else.
Exactly. Acquaintances more than friends.
We would always wave to one another, but we didn't really, well, we knew some more than others.
Yes.
And over the course of these 6 months, 6 meetings, we'd travel around to the different neighbors' houses. As Lori says, there was always food, there was always some kind of refreshments, liquid refreshments. And the conversation, even though we might be talking about water or energy, it started with, well, how's your hip? Or I see you got a new car, or where are you going for vacation? So it became a very social kind of aspect while we were talking about some very serious kinds of issues.
Yeah. And so that was a 6-week program?
It was a 6-month program.
A 6-month program, okay.
Yeah, well, there's 6 topics that we talked about. We met roughly once a month, but we probably it was 9 months to a year before we went through the whole program.
Pick out one topic like transportation. What came out of your discussions on transportation in the group?
Well, usually one person would be tasked with doing the background. So they'd do a little research on what is transportation about.
Yes.
And then they'd come to the group and talk about the different options that there are, not just generally, but specifically to where we live.
Yes.
The number 14 bus goes from here to here.
Yes.
Bike to work has courses if you're not comfortable on your bicycle, so you can get comfortable on your bicycle. Just all those kinds of things. How about car share? Well, what would that look like? Do we want to get a car on our street?
Yes.
We ended up not doing that, but you know, those kinds of things were the kinds of things that we would talk about.
And what results came out of it?
Well, one of the things, Lori says we don't have a car share, but in fact we do. We have two people with trucks on the street, and there are trucks now because they're owned by our new best friends.
You can just you lend them to each other because you've got trust established.
Well, that's it exactly.
Yeah.
And that trust, we talk about borrowing trucks, but it's to a point where we borrow just about everything. As a matter of fact, last night one of the neighbors called late at night in crisis mode to say, our daughter's getting married this weekend, as you know. We wanted to print out a bunch of the directions and seating plans and what have you, and we just ran out of ink. Can you print
what time of night was that?
Huh?
What time of night was that?
I think it was close to 9 o'clock.
Okay,
like that.
so normally like the cut-off time is like you shouldn't be knocking on the street after 8 o'clock or so. So that's showing more. Oh, they'll be fine with that, right?
Yeah.
Right,
Well,
exactly.
yeah, we've got some neighbors who are very flexible in how late they come around, yeah, it's a lot like family.
Uh-huh.
And are there more bicycles on the street now, do you think? More cycling?
I think we've tended to attract people who, there has been some turnover since we did this, and we tend to attract people who are attracted to that kind of thing.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting.
Yeah.
And for, you know, as the transportation, for instance, it's hard to know because it's a really personal thing that people do in their day-to-day commuter
lives. And you're
lives.
not a government organization monitoring and all
Right,
that stuff, right?
exactly.
You're just neighbors.
Exactly. But when we went to purchase stuff,
Yes.
like in the energy portion,
Yes.
a lot of us ended up getting heat pumps for our houses, and the energy one actually went crazy around the neighborhood a little bit.
In what way? Tell me more about the energy part of it.
Well, there was a whole bunch of rebates happening at that particular time.
Yes.
Jack and I both have a professional basis in energy. So we were able to show everybody, this is what you can do. There's My Hydro. You can look down to the hour to see how much energy you're consuming in terms of electricity. This is an app you can use in your phone to see how much fuel you're using in your car, yada, yada, yada. And so measuring it first, and then someone found a great deal on heat pumps, and there were all of these rebates federally and locally and everything, and suddenly everyone says, let's get a heat pump. Yeah, me too.
You got the whole house heat pumps, or the mini split ones, both, or both?
It's just, for us, it's sort of the whole house, but it's just a single heat pump.
Yeah.
And it works really incredibly well, and because it was so successful in terms of energy and comfort in my old 100-year-old
I don't want to get distracted because I want to talk about neighborhood organized, but most people don't understand how a heat pump works. It just is a bizarre box.
Right.
So I rebrand them as a solar heat pump, because the warmth in the air outside that they're putting into the house, what's it heated by? The sun.
The sun, right.
So they are actually a solar heat pump.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and Lori made an excellent point there that Lori and I have a background in engineering.
Yes.
And we were explaining to people about what they could do to improve the energy efficiency in their house. But what we were not aware of is the rebates that were on at that time, and they were very generous. And one of the other people that was organizing that session brought that to the table. So the combination of us having potential solutions and them having it make great financial sense, cause it was just a perfect storm. And that's, I guess, comes back to the start of the discussion of how a group of people can make far better decisions than individuals. Because even ourselves, we weren't about to get a heat pump, and then all of a sudden it became obvious that it was next thing to free. It was just a perfect storm.
So I want to jump to some of the street changes you had. If we can bring the next image up. And there's a series of 5 or 6 images here now, together. The first one shows a bunch of greenery on the side of the street, and it's got some writing on it.
Yeah, it's Evans Street Orchard.
There you go. It's
this is right behind McCaskill Street, so that's the street that we all live on.
So that would normally be a boulevard, right?
That's right.
That's right.
And it's now an orchard.
That is that was a boulevard, is a boulevard, and a couple of the people took the initiative to turn it into an orchard.
Yeah.
This is in the early days. It was just planted. But now those trees, I think they're all, what you say, 15, 20 feet tall.
Wow.
We have to build this corridor, hack out this corridor for cars to go down. So it's
my goodness.
just a delightful kind
so
of
what are you growing?
now.
What fruit are they?
A lot of apples. We have hazelnuts that the squirrels are busily eating right now.
Yes.
Strawberries. We have stinging nettles that people eat and drink in tea. And it used to be, this street was where a lot of people would take trash and dump it. You know how there tend to be locations and people feel comfortable doing that. That happened at this particular street. But now when you have families deliberately going down Evans Street in order that their children can pick the raspberries before they go to school, that doesn't happen so much.
That's great.
People care about it a whole heck of a lot more.
So the next image is of this amazing painting on the intersection. I mean,
oh, that's not us. That is.
That's from Portland, is it?
I believe it is.
Okay.
Yeah, that is a plan. It's in the works right now. We're just they're paving our intersection as we speak.
Oh, right.
Yeah, but we have a plan for a painting, and we'll get together with our neighbors like we have done previously on another mural project, in order to everybody gets together and paints their section of a particular design.
And will that be? How permanent will that paint be on the intersection?
Well, it's traffic marking paint, so it'll be as permanent
intended
as
to be permanent,
it
right?
gets. Yeah, exactly.
Well, we see downtown Victoria full of, all the crosswalks are now painted in all sorts of colorful ways, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So let's go on.
Part of it will be a mandala too, and in the spirit of a mandala, as it fades, it fades.
There you go.
Exactly.
So the next image is of a little library. Someone's built into a concrete.
Right, the book bunker.
The book bunker. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's the only concrete book box in Victoria. So you talk about permanence. That'll be there for a long, long time. That's a 100-year book.
And does everyone just chip in and put books in, put books in and take books out and stuff?
Yeah, it tends to change relatively readily, and we have one individual who is taking it on to be the librarian,
There you go.
and they go and they say, okay, this book has been here way too long. We're moving it along,
great.
and it works out great. And actually, the neighbor whose property that is on, because it's actually
Yes.
on someone's property, when they were building their wall and creating a foundation for this
Yeah.
thing that was falling apart, they put in that book box on their own.
That's great. And the next
Yeah.
image is of a bench someone's put up.
That bench looks a lot better now. It's been painted. Yeah, that was Diane's bench, I think. And we just put it in a little location in memory of one of the people who you saw on the first slide.
Was this someone's private garden, or is it public boulevard, or?
Well, this is another boulevard,
boulevard.
that has been reclaimed.
Yeah.
It was another place that people would throw trash and.
Wow. So for a thing like that, do you just do it, or do you go to the engineering department and get approval and blah, blah, blah?
It depends on the project. For something like this, we took a bunch of plants from Diane's garden, and in memory of her, we planted it around this bench. That doesn't really require engineering
Okay,
approval.
the bench was there before, you mean? Or you?
No, we took the bench and we
That's what I
put it
thought.
there,
You just
and
put it there, right.
you just put it there.
That's great.
Yeah, sometimes it's better to beg forgiveness than
I am
ask
of
permission.
that philosophy too, right?
But the project to paint the street, in fact, we're going to great extents
Yeah.
to get permission
Cool.
because of the safety concerns
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
So
And so the next image, I think, is more orchard coming up.
yes, the orchards are
Gavin's
starting
orchard.
to grow now. So the first
Yeah.
picture was when it
Okay.
was planted. This is about 3 years ago, so it's
Right.
about halfway to where it is now.
Right, and the next image is one that I use in my slideshows all the time, with the chicken eating the VW.
right.
This is
That
just
was
such
great
a
fun.
classic piece, right?
That was
What's
great
the
fun.
story? Hold the image there for a minute, let people enjoy it, but what's the story behind this?
The story was there was this concrete wall that was just absolutely falling apart.
Yeah.
And it was private property.
Okay.
And we'd wanted for ages to do something with it. And after we started talking to each other in this Transition Streets program, we just said, let's make that some of the other that we talk about.
Yeah.
Let's bring some art into the neighborhood. And we had a number of brainstorming sessions. What are we going to do for the mural? It went on around in circles. And then almost as a throwaway line, this kid in the neighborhood said, or at least this is what I heard, he said, why don't you just have a giant chicken eating a Westphalia, because there's more Westphalias on the street than you can imagine.
Oh,
And I
right.
said, that's a great idea. And it turns out later, he didn't even say that. I just heard that. And then we realized it makes more of a visual pun if it's a chicken eating a bug. And we
Yes.
have a rather iconic Volkswagen Beetle that's on the
Yes.
street as well. So everything just sort of aligned. Everyone loved the image, so we
Where
just
did,
went
where did
ahead
you find
with
the
it.
artist from?
Me.
You did it. Okay,
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
a pretty
I
good
was
artist
the artist,
then.
yeah,
You
yeah.
got
And
skill
that's sort of been my place in this, has been doing the art.
Okay,
You know,
yeah.
bringing the art. Everyone,
Yeah.
everyone in the community seems to have a place, and that's something that I have found in our culture,
Yeah.
if you can call it that it does a spectacularly bad job of holding people,
Yeah.
of ensuring that each individual has a place in
Yeah.
it. There's a lot of loneliness,
So-
and in our neighborhood, there's a place for everyone.
So we just got 10 minutes left. I want to go to the
Oops.
last image quickly from
Okay.
your Transition Street. Yes, Jack?
I just have to say that the thing that I loved best about that mural project
Yes.
is that even though Lori was the artist,
Yeah.
there was probably 100 people that painted that
Right.
painting. It was a
Okay.
paint by numbers,
Oh, there you
and
go.
everybody from 3 to 83
Brilliant.
were there painting it
Right.
and
So they
loving it.
They all own a part of it, right?
Right.
Exactly.
And Miss Tin and Paint comes in all shades of chicken.
There you
So it
go.
was perfect. You just go to the Miss Tins and they said, take it, you
Yeah.
know. And
So the last image onto the food issue is if you're supported fishing, right? So Michelle Rose Community Supported Fishing. What is this all about?
Do you want to give a background?
I know you live on the
Okay.
gorge, but tell me.
The Michelle Rose is a particular fishing boat.
Yes.
And we heard of it through the food section of the Transition Street, that just how do you support community-supported agriculture? This is some more community-supported aquaculture.
Yeah.
And so you can buy a share in this particular fishing boat, and they go out, and then you get a share of whatever it is.
How many
that they catch.
shareholders are there in the boat?
That's a good question. It just
Like
depends.
2 or 20 ballpark?
Oh, no, it'd be more like 40, 50,
really?
something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And it depends on how much of a share that
Yeah.
you want to have.
And did that come out of the food discussions on the street?
Yeah, that's
did.
yeah, that was the start of it. And
Wow.
and what I've really enjoyed about that food community supported aquaculture
Yes.
was that we didn't know what we were buying. Like they had a plan that they were going to go
Yes.
out and fish for a certain kind of fish, and they were going to fish in a certain location.
Yeah.
But they didn't guarantee us that they were going to get that
Right.
coho, or they were going to get
Yeah.
the shrimp, or they're going to get the whatever. And what they would do through the fishing season is they would give us upgrades to say, well, we went there and we didn't get anything. Sorry, now we're going to go to the top of the island,
Okay.
and we're going to try to get
That's great.
a different kind of fish.
Right.
So it made me appreciate fishers and
Yeah.
the
risks.
the risks
Yeah.
and what the job's like, and kind of living vicariously through
That's great.
through those emails. Through
So
that
the time we've got
adventure.
left, I'm going to read a list now of other things that you two are doing. The Gorge Swim Fest, mural projects, Nail Sail Bale, the Flamenco Festival, Vic West Festival, the Vic West Street Festival, McCaskill Langfill Intersex Painting, Vic West Art Questers, Vic West Neighbourhood Planning, Gorge Waterway Temperature Measuring. Oh my goodness, like, so you're broadening out into the whole Gorge neighbourhood in this community organising, right?
Well, it's back to the start of this conversation that we both feel that we're stronger if we're in a community than we are as individuals. And almost all of those projects involve a lot of people, a lot of people who are very close friends now, and a lot of people that we could go and say, can we borrow your ladder? Can we borrow your truck? Can we
Wow.
borrow a cup of sugar?
Yeah.
Can you print something for us? And
Can you look after my chickens?
yes,
Part of
that's
the
a big
food,
one.
we all got chickens.
So
too.
your social subjective experience has really changed from when you're working on your computers doing your engineering projects through to, you know, this engagement, right?
Right, right.
Yes.
You're really living in a village now, I figure.
Well, even in our professional lives when we were architectural engineers, we were part of a community also.
Yeah.
And maybe that's where the seeds were planted
Okay.
to be involved, because big projects like Dockside Green aren't developed by individuals.
Right,
They're,
okay. So-
they're invented by a village.
We clearly haven't got time to go through all that. So does a story come to mind for either of you, or both of you, from all your community organising? Something you'd like to share?
Well, I guess the last thing that you mentioned, the gorge water temperature measuring
Yes.
system was something that we applied to the City of Victoria for a Migrate Neighborhood grant for,
Yeah.
and we've got it. And now people can go online at gorgeswimfest.ca
Yes.
and see what the temperature of the water is in the gorge. The gorge is tidal, so when the tide comes
Right.
in, you bring in some of that cold ocean water. The tide goes out, and you
Oh, so it's
suck out.
when's a good time to swim?
Well, you go look. Generally, it's the afternoons at
Oh,
this time of year,
that's
but
funny.
but you
Yes.
can see it peaks. The
Oh,
water
really?
temperature comes up dramatically, and then you can see everybody goes down to the dock, and everybody's saying, "Oh, I see you checked the temperature," and it ebbs and flows literally.
There you go.
It's all
the
Jack's
people.
Trojan horse to get people in the gorge.
There you go.
So that if you're swimming in it, and if your kids are swimming in it,
Yes.
you're going to make sure it stays clean.
Right. And you also did the nail sail bale. You showed me the video of this.
Right.
Make a boat, sail it, sink, whatever, right?
Right. Yeah.
Is that the first time it's happened?
The first time it happened here?
Yeah, we,
Yeah,
we,
it's
we
perhaps
stole
happened
that
other
from
places.
other neighborhoods.
Cortez? Yeah, other
Yeah,
neighborhoods.
it was in Cortez. They did one, which is where we learned of it, and I understand Ucluelet does one.
So it's nail, sail, bale, meaning you've got to make a boat.
You got to
Yeah.
make a boat
From what?
from a set of set materials, and that sort of varies depending on what you can
Yeah.
get from the hardware store as your sponsor.
Okay.
And then you sail it around a course,
Yeah.
and hopefully
And you're
not
bailing it while you're
bailing
going.
too much. Yes, exactly.
Some of the boats I saw seem to be made from cardboard.
Yeah. Well,
They
Lori did a
were-
great video
Yes.
that you can find at.
But if
just-
you go to YouTube and put in nail,
YouTube.
sail, bale,
Right.
probably
That's
go
right.
straight to
You'll
it.
find it, yeah.
That's
Yes.
what'll come up, and it starts off with 2 people in 2 hours and some door skins, and see what you can do.
Amazing.
And it's a really fun video, and part of the art that enables us to build the
Amazing.
community.
So if people are watching this and they think, well, I'd like to do this among my neighbors, and maybe they live on a street where they really just commute, they don't know that. What's your starting advice to people? How do you get going initially on this?
Well, I would point people to Transition Victoria and the Transition Streets program.
Yes.
Because it is a documented program that leads you through all of those various subjects that we talked about earlier. So it's a way to, when we did it, Patty and I would go up to every door and knock on it, and we'd be able to say, here's a program from Transition Victoria that's supported by the CRD. So again, that was a Trojan horse.
And you're saying, I live in that house over there, like you're not coming in as a stranger.
Exactly.
I'm your neighbor from that house or whatever.
That's right, but we are a neighbor, and here's a program that's established. It's not just I'm your...
and some people are going to say no, and some say yes, is that it?
Right,
well,
exactly.
Everybody said yes.
You're just a magical couple, that's all I can say.
No.
But it's also people are craving it. I think people are craving getting to know each other, but they need an excuse. And like Jack was saying, the transition program creates that excuse, and then it gets the ball rolling a little bit. And you're only seeing each other once a month, so it doesn't seem onerous. If you are rather introverted, like myself, and don't want to be together all the time, it still works.
So is it all ages? People coming?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, we
everybody.
had, Lily was probably 3 years old when we were going through that, and we'd have kids doing kid things on the side, and it was open.
So what's the
everyone.
feedback? So first of all, Transition Streets. If you Google Transition Streets plus Victoria, you'll find something. Or what?
If you go to Transition Victoria.
Okay, we'll get the website up on the screen afterwards, right?
Perfect.
And what are the other people on the street saying about this change that has now come about? What's the word of the street?
Well, it's interesting. When we did the program, we got closely tied in with a dozen people that went through the program. And subsequently, there's been 3-4 of those people have moved and new people have come in.
Yes.
And they've been a perfect fit. And I don't know if it's a perfect fit because we've left an opening for them to come into, or whether we've just attracted like-minded souls.
When you see someone new arriving, do you actually go knock on the door and say, welcome to the neighborhood?
Oh, absolutely.
There you go.
That happens all the time.
We have a competition to say, well, have you met the new neighbors yet? I've already met them.
That's great. Well, look, time has flown by. We've got to wrap up. So I think that you being a champion for showing what's possible, we can all, wouldn't it be great if every street in Victoria, and Esquimalt, and Saanich, and Qualicum, and Parksville, and Nanaimo was doing this kind of thing? Wouldn't the world be such a different place?
It is going to be.
It is going to be.
When they do it.
We'll make it happen. We'll make it happen, right? So anyway, our time has run out here. My name's Guy Dauncey. This has been the show called Change the World. One of my small contributions is this book that I've written called Journey to the Future, A Better World is Possible, which imagines Vancouver in the year 2032 when all of this kind of thing is happening, and a whole whack more, just to show that we can believe in the visions that we hold within us. We can make this world a more beautiful, positive, wonderful place. Thanks for watching. Tune in next week for more, and keep on trucking.